ultimate cyber defense partnership, Qualys and your CMDB. Our next session is about teamwork, a very important facet of every organization. The CISO might refer to the asset inventory within the security program, while the CIO points to the CMDB. But why can't they both be right? In this session, you'll learn from our speaker, Kunal Modeja, VP of Product Management for the Attack Surface Management and Application Security at Qualys, on how Qualys Enterprise TruRisk Platform leverages bi-directional sync with the CMDB to create a unified source of truth between the two platforms. And later, in the final session, Kunal will bring on a special guest to close out our day. Kunal, welcome to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our Cyber Risk series. My name is Kunal Madasia, and I'm VP of Product Management for Attack Surface Management, Application Security, which is a web application and API security, and CNAP, the Cloud and Container Security. Today, I'm going to talk about the asset inventory and what are the different teams and the different methods that they are employing in order to build the unified asset inventory. What are the challenges that they face in terms of getting the accurate data and sharing the context between the IT and the security team, and how do they collaborate and how do they drive the business agility, right? So now let's start with the first step, right, which is how do you build your asset inventory and what are the challenges, right? Now today, if you see, the organization has a laptop, server, workstation, endpoint, multi-cloud, on-prem environment, connected devices, IoT, OT, and whatnot. Right now, in order to maintain this unified or a single source of truth, generally the organizations are managing the outdated spreadsheet. Some organizations that we have seen that they are deploying the CMDB projects, but then the CMDB has multiple challenges, right, in terms of how do you discover the data and put it in your CMDB. And even if you put it, there are multiple teams that are updating the CMDB or they are not updating, so there is no real time context. Also, the CMDB often a time the team do not have a visibility into the PCI zone or how about the internet facing assets and all of that, right? So now even the IT team is trying to build the inventory with the CMDB. They are into the challenges. Now on the other hand, we have a cybersecurity team, and the cybersecurity team is interested to do the cyber risk assessment for the asset inventory. For example, they are interested in finding out where do they have unauthorized software or a ports or a services. Are they running any end of life, end of service, and there are vulnerabilities related to the end of life, end of service, right? So now they, in order to get this cyber risk context, they are building the another set of inventory parallelly, and now that leads to the severely impacted mean time to respond whenever there is an incident, right? Now if you look at the organization, in order to solve this problem, there are two different departments taking on the two different projects, right? The CIO, the IT team, is embracing the CMDB project. The CISO, the cybersecurity team, is using some of the cybersecurity platform to get all of the assets. And each of these team has a sort of some overlap in the use cases, whereas there are some unique use cases. Like cybersecurity team needs to have a visibility of 100% of the attack surface, right? They want to turbocharge their various risk-based VM program, patch management program with the asset real-time asset information, whereas the CMDB team needs to manage the change management and the IT ticketing system and upgrading the software and infrastructure, right? And at the same time, each of this inventory, each of the platform has some lack of some of the capability, right? Now what does that lead to? That leads to the great divide between the security and the business team, which is your IT team, right? Now in order to solve this great divide problem where the different teams are taking different approach to build the asset inventory, what they really need is the unified data set, right? To solve the common goal, the common goal is build a unified asset inventory with all the required contexts, right? Now the unified data set needs to have all of the assets, be it internal, external, on-prem, cloud, IoT, OT. And it also needs to have all of the required context for the IT team and the cybersecurity team, right? And then finally the goal here is to improve the business agility and minimize the business disruption so that they can respond to the any incident or a threat in effective manner, right? Now, in order to build the comprehensive asset inventory, we have seen the organization generally relying on the CMDB. But then what we have learned with our customer base is that the CMDB itself is often a time missing up to 38-40% of the assets record. And why? Look, the currently every organization have a very dynamic environment. You got a cloud footprint, you got IoT, OT, you have a digital footprint on your perimeter, you have IoT, OT devices, your employees are bringing in a lot of handheld and the Bluetooth devices, right? So now often a time CMDB lacks the visibility into your internet facing assets, right? What we have seen at best, the CMDB has their laptop servers and the workstation, but then you got a ephemeral assets in your cloud or your on internet, right? You have IoT, OT. Now, if you look at the industry research firm like a Gartner, and they came up with a very interesting survey where they see that the 99% of the organization with the inaccurate CMDB, they experience the business disruption. And the reason being because your CMDB do not have all the assets, right? So now when the security team wants to respond to the threat, you don't even know that who owns the asset, where is it located, what is the risk of that, right? Now that leads to the business disruption as per the one of the survey that our friend at Gartner did it, right? Now when the CMDB do not have all the assets, what does that lead to? That lead to potentially unknown assets in your environment. Now that your cybersecurity team may not know because they may be relying on a CMDB, but your attackers definitely know. They are always smarter than us, right? So as per one of the interesting survey, on an average, about 30% of the assets organizations have that are unknown to them, and those unknown assets are often a time lead to a attack because the attackers are always one step ahead of us, and they are always looking to target those unknown assets, right? And often a time the security team which is looking to monitor the attack surface, but then they are not able to monitor it because they don't have a effective asset inventory at the first place, right? So now that leads to the risk of having a unknown in your environment, right? Now in order to solve this unknown issue, what could be the solution? In a layman term, right? If you look at it, all you have to do is discover all of your assets, right? Be it your internal, on-prem, cloud, internet facing, multi-cloud environment, right? Or your IoT, OT environment. And this is how you could perhaps build your unified asset inventory so that the no assets data is hiding, right? That's the solution, right? But obviously different organizations are embracing the different methods to build this inventory, and that could lead to the further challenges, which is how do you share the risk context with a different team. Right now think about it, the cybersecurity team, when they are finding the risky, outdated software or vulnerabilities in their environment, now they need to communicate this to the IT team so that IT team can patch it. Now what's the method, traditional method in which they communicate with IT team, which is sending the email or reports or pointing to the Jira ticket, right? Why? Because the CMDB that IT team which is using on do not have this context from a vulnerability or the outdated systems or the expire certificate or the internet facing asset. So that's why the cybersecurity team have to rely on the ineffective method of sending them details via email and the spreadsheet, right? Now on the other hand, the cybersecurity team, which is responsible for doing the risk based prioritization, they need a critical business context. For example, who owns this asset, which department, what are the critical applications running, right? Because you are not going to patch everything, and if everything is critical, then nothing is critical, isn't it? So now the cybersecurity team needs that business context which is in the CMDB often a time. But then how do they get to the cybersecurity platform that they are managing with their vulnerability management and the end of life, end of service, and the other cybersecurity program that they are using for, right? Now this further leads to the challenges in a communication, in terms of communicating the risk across the team, right? Now if I have to summarize this in terms of the risk factor that are missing from the CMDB, often a time we see that the CMDB do not have the vulnerability and misconfiguration information, right? Now the question is, oh, why does the CMDB need to have that? The reason is, when the cybersecurity team is finding the vulnerabilities, you need somebody to fix those vulnerability, right? Now if vulnerability is are on the IT system, then who owns the IT system? That's the IT team. And where do they look for those ownership information? They look for in the CMDB. And if CMDB does not know that this is the vulnerability, these are the owner, these are the critical asset, then how are they going to do it, right? They need to know that information. Same for the end of life and end of service outdated system. Now though it may sound like end of life, end of service is a IT job, but think about it. If you are running the outdated end of life, end of service operating system in your environment on your critical business infrastructure, and if there is a vulnerability that is getting exploited, you don't have a patch because it's already end of life, end of service, isn't it? Now in this case, cybersecurity team which is on line of fire and not the IT team for not upgrading, isn't it? So this is where I think the sharing the cyber risk context in the CMDB is extremely important in order to fix those issues with the department and the owner and the criticality, which is what the cybersecurity team has it on the cyber risk side, but then IT team do not have it, and that is where the CMDB needs to be populated with that context, right? Now, with that said, I wanted to quickly give you an overview of Qualys's approach and the solution to fix this broken CMDB or sort of outdated CMDB, and how Qualys can help you turbocharge your CMDB with the accurate informations and the required cyber context, right? So the step zero of measuring the risk is monitor your internal and the external attack surface, right? Be it your internal known assets with your Qualys agent and the sensors and the scanner, or you may want to monitor and find all of your external internet facing assets, which without any deploying any infrastructure. You have a multi-cloud assets, right? You have a on-prem assets, you have IoT OT assets that you want to monitor, right? So when it comes to monitoring the risk, you have to monitor everything, isn't it? And with our Qualys cybersecurity asset management, we firmly believe there is no one size fit all. Some organization have already deployed our agent and scanner, some do not want to deploy it. So that's why we have a agentless, API based, passive sensor, connector, and the unified approach, so that you can discover all the assets with the cyber risk, right? And on an average, we have seen our customers are discovering more than a 30% assets compared to what they have previously, right? And now once you discover all of these assets, it is going to help you meeting your business driver, such as a compliance need, or the auditor who is asking you that, hey, are you scanning all the assets in your VM program, right? How are you doing the risk based prioritization? Do you know that this asset is critical and the business impacting versus this is non critical assets in your development environment, right? So this is where Qualys helps you finding out everything and add the required context so that you can turbocharge your VM program, right? Now, in just quickly to summarize, right, we help our cybersecurity asset management helps today more than 1,000 customers in finding out known and unknown assets, and it helps find out all of the cyber risk like a vulnerability, misconfiguration, end of life, end of service, are there any unauthorized software running, and communicating that risk with IT team, because we do have a bi-directional sync with a ServiceNow CMDB and the BMC Helix CMDB. So then we can sync entire inventory to your CMDB with all of the required context. Not only that, but then in a bi-directional sync we get the data from the CMDB, which is who, department, ownership, business criticality, service mapping. So now you can leverage our cybersecurity asset management for a risk-based prioritization, and help your IT team with the required context so that they remediate the vulnerability faster, or they remediate their outdated end of life, end of service system faster, because that's what we give you in our system. So with our bi-directional real-time integration, more than 1,000 customers are today leveraging these integrations across the board. Right now, we recently introduced this new free report called the TechNet report. Now, what does that mean? That means, like as we discussed, monitoring the end of life, end of service infrastructure, software, hardware which are running on your critical infrastructure, extremely important for the cybersecurity team, isn't it? Why? Because if you have an outdated system and if the vulnerability get exploited, you are not going to have a patch, and it is going to do the business disruption for your organization, isn't it? So this is where we already have a built-in dashboard for the last 3 years, but now what we are launching is the free report that you can request for your organization, right? That you can request by reaching out to our TAM or going to the Qualys website, and we will give you the custom tailored report of the end of life, end of service in your environment, and we will tell you whether that EOL EOS is on your critical infrastructure owned by your business department or owned by your CEO or a finance department, and we will give you the nice roadmap of what is coming up to next 12 months, so then you can then collaborate with your IT team and give them this report so then they can work on acquiring the budget to fix those tech debt in your environment, right? So as a summary, now we started what is the record of a truth when it comes to asset inventory, right? Is it a cybersecurity platform or is it a CMDB? And the question is, why not both, right? The cybersecurity team use our Qualys cybersecurity asset management for cybersecurity use case, and as a part of that, perhaps our cybersecurity agents, Qualys cloud agents, are deployed in your PCI and your secure environment, because that's for a security use case. So you already have that inventory and a snapshot with all the cyber risk context. Your CMDB team has all of the asset criticality and relationship mapping and all of that. So now, if both of them drink beer together, if they collaborate together, then you have a best of both world, right? And what is that going to lead to? It's going to lead to a streamlined IT and a security. With that said, I know you heard the challenges in building the IT asset inventory and how the CIO team takes care, how the cybersecurity team takes care, and then the CMDB has outdated data, and how our customers are using Qualys powered cybersecurity asset management to enrich the inventory in a CMDB. Now you saw all of this and the challenges. Now, how about we showing you this in real time with a live demo with my colleague Pablo Quiroga, who is going to show you the step by step guide on how you can fix your perhaps the broken CMDB, maybe from outdated to the accurate CMDB, and how you can have a better alignment with your IT team so that you can drive the business agility without having any business disruption. Thank you so much for listening. And with that said, I invite Pablo to walk you through the live demo. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kunal, for the detailed presentation on the challenges with attack surface visibility and CMDB accuracy, and a great overview of the solution. I'm Pablo Quiroga, and I'm a Senior Director of Product Management at Qualys. I've been leading the cybersecurity asset management, ESM, and our CMDB sync solutions for over 6 years. During this time, I've partnered with hundreds of customers to understand their pain points and to build solutions together. What I want to do now is to dive into the approach, strategy, and the steps to turbocharge your CMDB to support the overall risk prioritization and remediation program. Now, there are 5 key ingredients to this approach, which Kunal covered already, but let's summarize once more. First, you need to discover all the assets across the hybrid environment to close visibility gaps. Second, you need to augment your security program with business context, especially asset criticality and ownership. Teams need to measure risk accurately, proactively, and more holistically, but not only incorporating vulnerability data, but also other risk factors. And you need to operationalize your CMDB with complete, up-to-date cyber risk context. And all of this to reduce the overall time really to remediate risk by accurately mapping and assigning tickets. Now, let's go to the next step. Now, depending on the maturity level of the attack surface program and the CMDB, customers generally start with one of the following approaches, but know that you can also do both at the same time. Let's look at the first scenario, which is very common. Organizations that are starting a CMDB program or slowly maturing it and want to operationalize it. They typically have some challenges. The IT team lacks visibility into the ephemeral internet asset and other environments, which really creates blind spots. CMDB is typically updated manually or through custom scripts, which translates into unnecessary work for these teams that are already busy. The initial implementation of CMDB projects usually takes more than 6 months. And then when the security team provides a list of vulnerabilities to fix, often those asset records don't match in the CMDB or they're completely missing, which makes creating and assigning tickets and creating progress very inefficient. And tracking progress very inefficient. Qualys provides a solution with a CMDB sync. Whether you're launching your CMDB program from scratch or improving its hygiene, you can easily leverage your current Qualys deployment of agents and scans to quickly populate your CMDB. You can fill the holes of other tools such as native CMDB discovery or Microsoft SCCM that may not cover all the environments. It also provides automated correlation and reconciliation of complete asset inventory. And it provides a credible and comprehensive asset metadata and cyber context. All this to finally enable accurate mapping of vulnerabilities to CMDB asset records, improving the assignment workflow and reducing the overall remediation time. The second scenario is for security teams that are using Qualys to assess the risk of the attack surface, and they need business context within Qualys to accurately measure the risk of the vulnerabilities and other factors. They also need to be able to organize scans, create dashboards, and reports based on this information. The challenge is that the asset criticality and other business information is isolated in the CMDB. The solution is to leverage the CMDB to Qualys integration flow to automatically add business context from your CMDB to your Qualys subscription, including asset criticality and related business app and service, device owners and business unit, support groups, and even other custom attributes that you have created in your CMDB. And as I mentioned earlier, you can quickly start with either approach depending on your objectives with the Qualys bi-directional CMDB sync. Now let me take you through a step-by-step demo. I'm going to structure it in 2 parts. First, I'll show you how to build a comprehensive attack surface management program with flexible, use case-driven discovery methods to close visibility gaps, and with integrated business context to accurately prioritize TruRisk. Then I'll show you how to synchronize with your CMDB to build a comprehensive source of truth across IT and security teams and to enable accurate mapping and assignment of vulnerability remediation tickets to reduce overall MTTR. Let's start in the CISM homepage, where we can deploy and configure the various Qualys sensors and connectors. On the left-hand side, we see the lightweight cloud agent, being the best option to continuously collect detailed asset telemetry across on-premise, cloud, and remote workforce. Qualys network scans are a popular way to discover your network and fingerprint devices. Scrolling down are network passive sensors that detect assets in real time to discover potential unmanaged assets and rogue IT, but are also very relevant when accurately identifying enterprise IoT and operational technology. We can also configure container sensors for Docker and collect data from mobile devices. Farther down here, we can also collect metadata from cloud infrastructure by simply connecting with API credentials. We can synchronize with CMDB, which we'll discuss more in a minute. And we can bring visibility to your internet-facing assets with natively built external attack surface monitoring. We're going to move to the primary dashboard. Getting a summary of your inventory from multiple perspectives is critical when organizing your IT and security programs. Being able to understand your assets across your environment with multiple lenses is critical, for example from hardware and operating system category, geolocation, and more granular function-based classification such as web and database servers. Out-of-date software is an important source of security issues. Understanding software distribution by application category and publisher is crucial. Also understanding whether they are open source or commercial. CSAM automatically enriches your inventory with software lifecycle to allow you to track end-of-life and end-of-support applications proactively. It also allows you to leverage its highly organized data to create policies to monitor for installations of unauthorized software and services, as well as missing required agents and security tools. The average enterprise has visibility gaps north of 30% across their hybrid environment. With CSAM 3.0, customers can quickly find assets missing from their security program. Teams can leverage the already deployed Qualys agent, enabling its built-in passive sensing capability to discover and manage assets and IoT, as well as detecting rogue devices. And they can now also use built-in connectors to further extend visibility and automatically correlate device data with key sources of IT asset and business context. Use built-in dashboards to monitor previously unknown assets in real time and easily add them to vulnerability management and compliance scans with a single workflow. Let's switch to our CISO dashboard that incorporates asset and business context to accurately measure and prioritize risk. As a CISO, I want to understand which critical business apps have highest risk, who owns those apps, and who supports them. I'm going to drill down to these assets with severe risk that are supported by my IT Ops team. By clicking into this asset, we can understand its true risk in one central place. The asset was automatically tagged with information coming from the CMDB, including Business App Finance, with an asset criticality score of 5/5, which is a key factor for risk scoring. TruRisk leverages Qualys' market-leading vulnerability detection with correlation of more than 25 sources of threat intel to prioritize vulns that present the highest risk to the organization. CSAM extends TruRisk by accounting for end-of-support software, missing IT and security agents, unauthorized software and services. Security teams can understand who owns and supports the asset within a single workflow to prioritize risky assets. Now let's talk about external attack surface monitoring, a built-in capability that simply requires your organization name or top-level domain to start discovering all your internet-facing assets across your global subsidiaries. And with the recently introduced multi-profile configuration, organizations can easily extend risk assessment of potential mergers and acquisitions while keeping information organized for reporting. Let's drill down into this asset scored with a high risk. EASM discovered this asset with the organization name in the config. It then found the subsidiary, performed domain and subdomain enumeration, and finally resolved the current public IP address behind that subdomain. With this patent-pending discovery and attribution method, EASM also provides a confidence score, which in this case is high. This enables a risk analyst to prioritize investigation tasks while removing false positives, and provides all relevant details for this internet-facing asset in one place. Now that we have comprehensive asset visibility with relevant cyber context, let's switch gears to our native CMDB integrations. I'll focus on ServiceNow. From the ServiceNow App Store, download and install the Qualys bi-directional CMDB sync. This is a certified integration that we have built in conjunction with ServiceNow that enables us to push data from our asset repository into CMDB and bring business metadata back to Qualys as well. Once installed, typical configuration can be finished within the same day. What you see here is a view of your inventory data coming from Qualys CISO. This built-in dashboard shows the distribution by asset category, OS distribution, application categories, and more. Teams can monitor SSL certificates by expiration date and identify self-signed or weak certificates. IT and security teams can collaborate to upgrade software that is already end of life or with upcoming end of support. They can proactively plan upgrades. One type of software that typically requires more time to test before migration is a database. Let's click on Database category to drill down. Here we can see all database installations, including client and server components, commercial and open source. We can group by multiple attributes, including publisher, product, and lifecycle and support stages. We can see a PostgreSQL version that will be end of support 6 months from now. This is an excellent time for IT to start working on an upgrade plan. Now let's filter to see only already end of support installations. Here we can see that SQL Server and Redis installations are already end of support, which means that there are no more security patches available for these versions. And since some of these have exploitable vulnerabilities, they will require immediate attention. Now let's go back and click on Approved Assets to explore the list synced from Qualys. Clicking on Qualys Asset ID brings up a view showing exactly the rich asset telemetry populated by the Qualys integration, including identifiers, risk score, detailed hardware, operating system, and their product lifecycles, open ports, network adapters, file system, and software installation. If the security team has defined software policies such as required, authorized, or unauthorized software, the IT team can now also see which assets don't comply with this security policy. For example, since this is a database server and it is missing the required data loss prevention agent, it is being flagged here. Even Qualys tags are populated for additional context. Lastly, a critical point of interest for our customers is to fully understand and get details of their internet-facing assets. Often, these assets are unknown to IT teams for several reasons. For example, legacy teams created by decentralized IT teams, websites created by business teams for short projects and then left behind, cloud instances directly spun up by other business departments without IT oversight. Qualys provides full visibility of these external internet-facing assets and brings this visibility to your CMDB for all teams to be in sync. Click on External Internet-Facing Assets. Here we can see a list of assets with their domain, subdomain, and IP address, their ISP provider or data center. In this case, some of these assets are hosted in AWS. Let's sort by risk score and then click on the first asset to drill down. Scrolling down, we can see additional details such as ports exposed to the internet, who is records for this asset, to help understand when and who registered this site. The Subdomain tab provides a list of other subdomains hosted on the same public IP address. Now let's go back to our previous example and see how this asset was merged to the CMDB, which enables accurate mapping and assignment of vulnerability remediation tickets. No more orphan tickets or unmatched CI records. Let's click on this vulnerability task to see the information. We can see host details, including Qualys Asset ID, full vulnerability and threat intel details, as well as remediation steps. Now IT and security teams share the same information to close communication gaps and tackle remediation most effectively. Let's briefly discuss how teams can get this visibility in a matter of few days, as compared to traditional CMDB projects that could take more than 6 months. The first step is to create a source with your Qualys subscription API credentials. We then click on Schedules. Then select Qualys to ServiceNow direction. This is where we track the flow of information and selection of asset attributes. Here you can configure the frequency and include a filter if you want to only include a subset of assets. It provides easy-to-use parameters and options to quickly define what attributes need to be imported. The app comes with all computer and hardware class mappings, identification and correlation rules pre-configured and ready to go, while providing full flexibility for you to fine-tune. The goal is to quickly operationalize your CMDB by leveraging many years of experience and customer feedback we have incorporated in this app. Now, if you recall earlier, we saw business context attributes and tags, including asset criticality, that were synced to Qualys. Let's see how those are configured. Here, you can map criticality levels from business service or business apps to Qualys asset criticality score. Every time an application or service is linked to an asset, it creates a tag with the app name and corresponding criticality score. We can also define additional Qualys dynamic tags to be directly created from CMDB business attributes such as department and support group. Let's now create a schedule to sync information from ServiceNow to Qualys. What we see here are the asset attributes that are available for us to pull from ServiceNow and populate into Qualys. So we have environment and business unit, department, and several ownership attributes as well. You could even import additional asset metadata to go as custom attributes into Qualys. In addition, this allows IT teams that are provisioning new servers to automatically add those to Qualys for vulnerability scanning. A lot of organizations are using ServiceNow, but not all. Another very popular CMDB is BMC Helix. We have created a solution for this as well with very similar options. Lastly, often your IT and SecOps teams need to correlate asset information with logs when investigating incidents, and they leverage a SIEM solution. Teams can leverage our native CSAM app for Splunk Enterprise. It imports and indexes all information, including EOL/EOS, internet-facing assets, risk scores, and more. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed the demo and have a better sense of how Qualys CSAM with comprehensive asset visibility and risk context and native integrations with CMDB and other IT workflows can help your organization. Simply scan the QR code you see here in the screen to request a 30-day trial at no cost and help align your IT and security teams.